Hello, everybody. This is Megan,
And this is Alana.
and welcome to Tea Time Crimes.
Welcome. I'm a little tired.
Yeah, you had a long week, and I had a really fun travel day yesterday. How many layovers? 17?
Just about 2 layovers, 3 flights, 4 airports,
Yuck.
and an hour and a half drive.
Ugh, yuck.
But all good. I'm here.
Was it a good trip?
Yeah, it was. It was a good trip. It was a very good trip.
It was a work trip, so.
It was a work trip. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing all right. I got my special Tea Time Crimes mug that you made me.
Yep.
We need to get these out for the public. Did you have a caffeine tea today, I'm guessing?
Probably a little light on the caffeine. I have a green variety today.
Yuck, I hate green teas.
You do? I love green
Well, I'm not
teas.
drinking it, so it doesn't matter.
Well, I can smell it from here, which is nice.
Is it?
It's an apricot green. Green tea from China with the delicate flavors of apricots. Makes a light and refreshing drink that's popular both hot and iced. If you're new to green tea, this lightly flavored tea may be a good place to start.
What just happened?
There's a typo.
Oh. Also, you say the fruit differently than I do.
Apricots?
Yeah.
You say apricots?
Yes.
Yeah, well, vowels are hard.
Don't be a butt.
I'm not. I say this all the time because nobody can ever get my name. Any person that doesn't know me, like when we're talking to vendors, they can never get my name right. Ever.
Vowels
there's
are
too many
hard.
vowels.
Do all people say, how do you say it?
Apricot?
Do all people say apricot?
I'm guessing it's probably a regional thing. Like
Or what do you say? I don't even know what to say now.
pecans. I say apricots and you say apricots.
Apricots. Yeah. I'd love to know. I'd like to poll the audience, please.
Poll the audience. So we got Chinese green tea, apple pieces, apricots, and marigold flowers. So yeah, it smells really nice. It's very pungent in a good way. Pungent always feels like a bad word.
I've warmed up to it.
Get it? Because it's tea. It smells really nice. Ooh. It feels like it's like seeping into the cracks of the earth. It like goes down smooth and then it gets dark and goes deep.
Wow. Really penetrating.
Yeah. Penetrate that analysis. Really set the table. Okay. Yeah, it's lingering in the mouth. It's sticking nicely using its little hands. Ugh. Apricots coming through. Oh God. Get out of my mouth. Can you imagine? Imagine Slappy crawled out of my mouth. That's a horror movie.
Stop. Why would you even put that image out into the world?
That's in someone's dreams now.
Slappy is still locked in the closet.
Why haven't you gotten rid of him and told that he ran away or crawled away? Ugh.
Because then he's alive.
Oh.
He needs to stay put and stay still, and he doesn't want to get rid of him. He still likes him. He just doesn't want to play with him in case he is alive.
It's disturbing.
Yeah, you aren't kidding. All right, how's that tea? Is that marigold a little too woodsy?
I don't get any marigold, but the green tea is nice and rich, and that's what's penetrating the earth. And the apricot will just kind of float on top. You know that when you pour too much water into a plant and it takes a little while to sink in, that's the apricot. It's definitely a thumbs up. Let's give it a penetrating
Yikes. That sounds like a thrusting thumbs up, cousin.
Yeah. No, it's a very nice tea.
Okay, then. I'm officially grossed out. Nobody asked me for a wet signature this week, though, so let's move on. Okay. You're going to like today as much as one could like. Well, you're not going to like it. It's not Anne Bonny or Mary Read, but if you're in the murder realm, we're going back in time, which you love.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so just, let's really let it loose. So in July of 1843.
Yeah!
2 bodies were found in the cellar of a farmhouse outside of Toronto, Canada. The owner of the home, Thomas Kinnear, was found shot once in the chest, and his housekeeper, Nancy Montgomery, had been struck on the skull and then strangled.
To death?
Yes.
Okay.
The relationship between the two was described as, quote, rather less than kin and considerably more than kind.
Oh, that's clever. Or as we
Yeah.
might say, as a man and a woman.
Yeah, that's my next line. Yeah. Which was all but confirmed when Nancy's autopsy revealed that she was actually pregnant, making this a triple homicide.
Oh, that's sad.
I know, that is sad. So the most likely suspects, well, the only 2 other servants in the house who were missing, along with all of the valuables and the horse and the carriage.
Well,
So a human hunt ensues.
a human hunt? Why did you specify it like that? Like instead of a monster hunt?
Instead of a man hunt, because there's a man and a woman.
Oh.
So,
Yeah.
So who are
we're
they
in
looking
Canada.
for? Yeah, we're not. I don't know where you were.
I don't know. Somewhere across the
We're
sea.
in Eastern Europe. The first servant they're looking for is 20-year-old James McDermott, who had been hired as a servant for Mr. Kinnear. Sometimes he was referred to as a stable hand. And the second servant is 16-year-old Grace Marks, who is essentially a servant for Nancy because Nancy's kind of become the unofficial mistress of the house.
Whoa.
Even though she's technically the housekeeper.
Right.
So McDermott, he's Irish Catholic, and he'd been in Canada for several years. Pausing for your Irish accent.
Oh,
Is it
no,
coming out?
I'll keep a lid on it, honey.
Okay. So McDermott started working as a waiter.
McDermott. Okay, that's it.
And in 1840, he enlisted in the 1st Provincial Regiment of the Province of Lower Canada. Catchy title.
That's too long.
I know, right? Like, they're like, did they think they abbreviated it then? Like PROTPOLC?
Practical.
It sounds like McDermott, after he was discharged, he lived in Toronto for a bit, got a little bit of the city life. He didn't seem to be working then, living off of his savings. But then, of course, he needed to find work. He's not independently wealthy from being in the prowl polk. That's how you say it again. being enlisted for a few years there. So he decides that he wants to get out of the city, go to the country a little bit, and he's hired by Nancy Montgomery to be Mr. Kinnear's servant. Now, Grace is hired just a few days later. Grace was also born in Ireland, but she's a little younger. She was born in 1828. And her father was a stonemason and an alcoholic. Not a great mix. And the family had 8 children. Grace is third in the lineup. And when she's about 12 years old, the family decides to move from Ireland to Canada. When they make that move, Grace's mother passes away.
Oh.
So Grace starts out at a really young age as a domestic servant, and she worked in 5 other homes before landing at Mr. Kinnear's. 5 homes is a lot. I mean, let's say she started when she was 13. She's only 16 by the time she gets there. So Nancy Montgomery found Grace working for a man named Thomas Watson, who was a shoemaker. And Nancy would come into the shop often, and she got to know Grace, and she gave her a job for $3 a month as a housekeeper, servant,
Are shoemakers, are cobblers shoemakers?
I think so. Okay. I don't know if he was, I don't think she was making shoes. I think she was just his housekeeper.
Gotcha.
But I don't know for sure. He didn't say.
Oh.
But did you have an insight about shoes?
No, it's just a confusing title because when I think of cobbler, I think of cobblestone. And that's not shoes.
The shoes are touching it, though,
that's
constantly.
True.
These 2, Grace and McDermott, are not career criminals, obviously. They're pretty young. And they are found within 2 days in Lewiston, New York, by the high bailiff who brings them back to Canada.
Oh.
Now, just like with any other murdering duo, what do they do?
Attack each other.
Yeah, they blame each other, but not very well. So usually they'll claim that the other person did it all and they had no idea, or they were surprised, or they tried to stop him or her. And that's not what these 2 got going on. So they each confess. Okay. So according to McDermott, Neither of them had been there long before Grace started fighting with Nancy. So 16-year-old Grace is not getting along well with Nancy, who's technically her boss.
Yeah.
He claims that Grace told him Grace couldn't stand it anymore and she was going to poison the porridge, kill Grace
Whoa.
and Mr. Kinnear, and she just wanted his help. And if he helped her, they'd be rid of them, problem solved.
Or you could just, quit.
Right. You've worked at other homes before. You know how life works.
Weirdos.
Yeah. Well, McDermott said he refused. He said, no, thank you. But he does admit he didn't like working for Nancy. He says it in proper 1800s language, but basically it seems like she was in his face and micromanaging, and he wasn't a fan. So McDermott went to Mr. Kinnear and complained about Nancy. And Mr. Kinnear basically said, she's in charge. Sorry, man. And just left it at that. So McDermott said that he gave his notice and that he was leaving at the end of the month because he didn't enjoy working there.
Good.
Yeah, that's great problem solving.
Yep.
Not sure what happened between the solved problem and the end, but here we go. The end of the month is approaching. McDermott said he knew that and he was planning to leave, but Mr. Kinnear was making a trip out of town at the end of the month. Now, a source says that Kinnear had been a captain, and so he received half pay from that, and he would go collect it once a year.
From the place?
From the place, exactly. So they knew he was going and coming back with a large sum of money. Everybody knew that. That was in the house. That was common knowledge.
Quick thing.
Yeah.
His name reminds me of paneer, which makes me hungry for Indian food. Just thought you should know that.
Who?
Kinnear.
Kinnear?
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Super relevant. So Kinnear is going to make this trip. He's coming back. He's also a farmer, and he's described by the Canadian Encyclopedia as an upper class farmer. So,
okay.
Diamond potatoes, I'm guessing. I don't know what that means. I think it probably means he probably just had a lot of valuables in the house.
I guess.
I don't know.
Yeah,
maybe a lot of
interesting
land.
Class.
Yeah. Anyway, McDermott says he's quit, and he knows that. And then at the same time, Nancy's decided that she's sick of Grace and she's going to let Grace go, which makes Grace furious. Grace wasn't having it. So she decides to stick with the poison plan, and she's going to take all the valuables and she's going to run to the U.S. And McDermott again says, no, thank you.
Yeah.
You're on your own. So again, we've got 2 instances of potential problem solving. Then after Mr. Kinnear leaves, Grace just starts packing up some of the valuables. She said they're probably not going to pay her anyway, so she's taking what's hers and she's getting out. Because this is at a time when if you get fired, this happened in a couple other stories too. If you get fired, you sometimes have literally nowhere else to go, so you have to kind of stay on for a couple days.
And you see in Downton Abbey, it's really helpful to have a reference because otherwise it's hard to get a job.
Yeah, and so you kind of have to stick around for a minute. And
I guess you just have to learn how to fish in the meantime,
All right, then. So according to McDermott, Grace said now was the time to kill Nancy and that they would take care of Kinnear when he returned, and he was to help her.
Relax.
She said he was a coward if he didn't. And here's where McDermott just jumped in. He said, I will not say how Mr. Kinnear and Nancy Montgomery were killed, but I should not have done it if I had not been urged to do so by Grace Marks.
Really? You're triggered by getting called chicken? Isn't that like in Back to the Future when they call him chicken and he does something dumb?
Does he murder 2 people?
No murder.
I mean, is that what happens? I don't recall that. Did they edit that out? That's a director's cut?
Talk about triggered.
Yeah, so that's
Get yourself together.
I don't know how much of this confession is true, but if you can believe any of it, it seems like he was level-headed.
Yeah, up until coward.
He's like, I don't enjoy working for this woman. Wait, are you calling me a coward? Okay, let's get the axe.
All right, let's murder.
So something's missing here. And McDermott ends his confession by saying after Nancy was dead, Grace kept going back to the body to kind of scavenge it for valuables and wanted to rip her earrings off. And McDermott said to leave her alone.
Grace is a little bit of a sicko.
Well, hold on. That's McDermott's side of things. Here's Grace. On the other hand, Grace says she was getting along perfectly with everyone. And it was McDermott who was constantly getting in trouble with Nancy, so much so that Nancy fired McDermott, not her. And McDermott was to leave at the end of the month. And Grace was never planning on leaving. She was never going to plan on going anywhere. So McDermott, when he got the news, he said he didn't care because he didn't like Nancy anyway.
Yeah.
Also, he was pretty sure Nancy and Kinnear were having an affair.
Wow.
Which
checks out.
Grace was super interested in because, I mean, that's pretty hot goss for that time. There's only 4
Yeah.
people in the house. Not a lot going on, you know what I mean? And Grace agreed with him because she noticed that Nancy did not sleep in her room when Kinnear was in town. And when Mr. Kinnear was gone, the 2 girls shared a bed. Not as a woman and a woman, but just a space issue. Like they shared a room.
I gotcha.
Okay. So I have to be clear. So McDermott pulls Grace aside to let her know about his plan. Kinnear's heading out of town. When he returns, he's going to have a lot of money on him. So McDermott's going to kill Nancy first and then shoot Mr. Kinnear as soon as he returns, rob him of the money, all the valuables in the house, head to the United States. Grace promises she will keep this a secret. Why? I don't know. Why would you keep that a secret?
Yeah, that's weird.
That's not a great secret.
Are they in a relationship as a man and a woman?
I don't know. It's unclear. Mr. Kinnear leaves on the 27th, which is a Thursday. He leaves around 3 in the afternoon.
Would you say he left on a Thursday?
McDermott always planned to shoot Kinnear, Grace said. But to kill Nancy, McDermott planned to use an axe and then strangle her, which seems incredibly specific and not super efficient. So I have a hard time believing that nugget.
Yeah, that's it. Like that's not something you'd plan for.
Right. It seems
that's something
out
that
of
happens.
necessity. Yes.
Oh boy, Grace, I'm pinning you already.
So that night, Grace says that McDermott wanted to kill Nancy. And Grace says, no, not tonight. So Nancy lives another day. Phew. The next morning is Friday. Nancy tells McDermott, according to Grace, hey, it's your last day. Get your wages and bye-bye. And McDermott asks to stay until Saturday because he probably doesn't have anywhere else to go. And he's also super pissed, according to Grace. So that night, Friday night, James Walsh, who's a neighbor that lives on the property with his father in like a separate cottage.
Yeah.
I think he's about their age. He's young. He comes over. He plays the flute. So he comes over for a jam session.
Is it a tin flute?
I don't know.
I really hope it is. Oh, man.
What other you mean besides a wooden flute?
There's like the tin flute is like a little, I don't know if it's specifically an Irish flute, but it's very nice.
Well, they're in Canada.
But they're Irish immigrants.
I don't know if James is. Oh. Yeah. Anyway, he comes over. Nancy's oblivious to the fact that 1 or 2 people are planning on killing her. So she's just trying to live her life. She asks James to play some music. She also asks McDermott to dance for them because apparently he's been bragging about his dance moves for a while. And so she says, now's the time. But McDermott refuses. I imagine the weight of being about to commit murder is weighing on him a little bit. And I mean, also, it's a flute. I mean, that's not real jam music. Like, unless he's Lizzo, I really don't.
Well, you could do some jigs with a flute.
I guess some Irish jigs. Yeah. Anyway, James plays a little bit. McDermott's a wet blanket. He leaves. Everybody in the house goes to bed. McDermott says, tonight's the night. And again, Grace says, not tonight. Not to save Nancy, though, which you might expect, but because she doesn't want McDermott to accidentally hit her since they sleep in the same bed.
Oh, self-preservation.
She's uncomfortable that she might accidentally get hit with an axe, and could he wait until daylight?
Uncomfortable. Okay.
Yeah. So morning comes. Grace and McDermott are down in the kitchen. Nancy's upstairs still getting dressed. Apparently, again, McDermott says, all right, I'm going up. Gonna do it. And Grace says, no, please. Not to save Nancy, but because she doesn't want to clean the blood off the bedroom floor. She doesn't seem concerned with the correct things.
No.
That a person
No, she's off.
Something like this is her confession.
Right.
These are the reasons she's giving.
She's off, for sure.
So Nancy comes downstairs. She orders Grace to go get her some water. I assume the house some water. When she returns, Nancy has been struck and McDermott is dragging the body. He yells at Grace, open the door to the cellar, which they call a trap door because I assume it's in the floor.
Mm-hmm.
She refuses, which makes McDermott mad. He has to continue to hold Nancy's body, open the door himself, and he throws her down. McDermott comes back up from the cellar, tells Grace he needs her handkerchief because Nancy isn't dead yet. He goes back into the cellar and strangles her.
That's mean.
Well, I mean, none of the murder part was going to be nice. Apparently, McDermott is now mad at Grace for not helping because she promised that she would. So Grace says she will definitely help with Mr. Kinnear. She just didn't want to kill a woman, but she's all in for Kinnear.
She's telling this to the jury.
To McDermott, yeah. And this isn't her confession. She's saying...
she's the one saying this.
Yeah, it's not like making her look great. That's what I'm saying. So McDermott then eats breakfast, and he eats. He's hungry. He heads to the neighbors to get some gunpowder so that when Mr. Kinnear returns, he can use the gun.
How can you eat?
Grace is sure to mention that she was too upset to eat. Okay, Grace. So Mr. Kinnear arrives home around 11 a.m. that Saturday morning. McDermott runs out to meet him, takes care of the horse, and Grace makes Mr. Kinnear breakfast. He was hoping to have meat and was surprised that the butcher hadn't been there because the butcher delivers meat for the house every Saturday. So he had to settle for tea, eggs, and toast. He was also surprised and inquiring on where Nancy was.
Oh.
After breakfast, Mr. Kinnear sits down on a couch to read a book, and again, Grace said McDermott came running in and was like, now's the time, and Grace told him to hold off. After evening tea around 7 p.m., McDermott said it was time again. Grace said no. She took the tea to the kitchen and she heard the gunshot. She ran back into the room, saw Mr. Kinnear, and she started to run herself, but McDermott told her to get back here and help as she promised. And she said because she had promised, she wanted to keep her word, so she went and she opened that trap door to the cellar. Like, who cares
how that works?
If you promised?
Yeah.
And McDermott threw Mr. Kinnear down in the cellar as well. After the murder, Grace said that she was so scared she started to run outside and McDermott fired the gun at her. Grace fainted. When she woke up, there was a bullet in the door jamb from the entryway where she had run through. Once they get themselves together, James, the flute player, happens to be walking by, and he's a little curious. So he's like, hey, where is everybody? And why do you have a gun? Why did I hear gunshots? Like, all great questions. But McDermott just says some things and sends him on his way. So that night, the two load everything up, head to Toronto. McDermott says he will marry Grace once they arrive to the U.S. What a marriage proposal.
Wow. Beautiful.
Something to tell the grandkids. They get to Toronto very early the next morning. They have breakfast. Grace changes into Nancy's clothes. Just want to throw that out there.
That's weird. Why do we do this?
Yeah. The couple took a boat to New York around 8 a.m. They arrive by 3 p.m. They have dinner. They rent separate rooms. And Grace says, that's it. I'm not going any further with you. He says, yes, you are. And the high bailiff finds them and arrests them before anything else can be decided. So those are their confessions. McDermott is saying basically, I said no, and then I did it.
Right.
And Grace is saying, I said no because I didn't want things to get dirty 17 times.
Yeah.
And I didn't do anything to stop it.
Not looking good.
Yeah, they're not great confessions.
Dumbbells.
So trial starts November of 1843. They are tried separately.
Okay, good.
And so many people attend the proceedings that they're actually concerned about the building's integrity. They think the floor might cave in.
Whoa.
Sadly, they're only tried for Kinnear because they felt that a second trial would be redundant.
That's...
I know. That's
you guys are stupid.
Yeah, I don't love that. And I also think, really, well, why wouldn't you start with Nancy? Because she was pregnant.
Yeah.
But they start with the man. Yeah. At the trial, McDermott is described as slim build, average height, and, quote, sullen, downcast, and forbidding countenance.
Well, at least he didn't
I
get
mean,
the pale label.
that's right. He didn't say anything about him being too pale, but it is his murder trial,
Yeah.
folks. What do you
Come on.
expect? He's not going to walk in jovial.
I mean, he could be a candy.
Yeah, start kissing the jury.
Yeah.
Grace is described as pretty, but looks uneducated. Not sure how they can tell that, but there you go.
Wow.
So McDermott is tried first. Once they start reading the charges, so right at the start of the trial, that's when they become afraid that the floor is going to buckle under the weight of such a large crowd and people start running for the door.
Oh my God. Chaos.
I know. Apparently McDermott doesn't even flinch. He's just like, I'm just
Wow.
going to sit here. I mean, the man knows that this isn't going to go well for him and he's up
he
against a death
has to.
sentence. There must be a part of him that's like, good, hope this whole building does cave in.
Yeah.
But everything is fine. Everyone is fine. Floor included.
Oh.
It stood up the test of time. So they
I wonder if
proceed
it's
with
still there.
right, maybe. They proceed with their list of witnesses. You have a man by the name of James Newton, who was one of the unlucky folks who first discovered the bodies. Yeah, he saw Kinnear about 2 miles from his house on July 29th, traveling home, and they had made plans to catch up the next day.
Oh.
So the next day, Mr. Newton goes over for a visit. No Kinnear.
Nobody's there.
Nobody's there. He asks the neighbors, have you seen anybody? He goes to the stable. There's no horse. There's no wagon. He heads into the house. He sees a few drops of blood. So he searches the bedrooms. He searches all of the house. Nobody.
Cellar.
Newton then goes looking for Nancy Montgomery. Well, even if Kinnear had gone out, Nancy should be here.
Yeah.
He even goes to the house that she often will visit. You know, what I guess it's a neighbor, but I'm sure it's a little bit away.
Oh, okay.
And during this search, he runs into other neighbors and asks and inquires with them. And so there's more people now becoming involved in this. And they keep going back to the house. They're looking everywhere. They keep bringing in new sets of eyes, just trying to find them. They keep not being able to find them. Finally, they notice the trapdoor to the cellar.
Okay.
They open it. They find Kinnear dead, shot in the chest.
And Nancy.
Nancy would be found later. She was hidden in the cellar under a tub.
Oh. Under a tub? Like
Yeah,
crushing her?
They'd flipped a tub over her, I think.
Oh,
to hide
I
her.
see.
You thought they squeezed her underneath one?
I thought they like literally squished her under one, which is really cruel.
No, they flipped it.
Okay. Was it porcelain? Because that's probably pretty heavy.
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm assuming it was like a metal wash basin.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Not pertinent. Now, James Newton then in court identifies all of the valuables that were found with Grace and McDermott as Mr. Kinnear's, the ones that they took from the house.
Uh-huh.
A lot of them had the Kinnear crest on it, so it wasn't rocket science, right? He was like, yep, that's the Kinnear crest. You see it right there? That's Mr. Kinnear's. Yep, right.
Wow.
So they cross-examine Mr. Newton, and it doesn't do anything for McDermott, like to help him. But it is interesting because it makes me question Nancy and Mr. Kinnear's relationship. Because James Newton said that Mr. Kinnear thought Nancy might be pregnant when he hired her. And I have no idea how long Nancy had been working for him, if this was an old story, had she been there for years.
Right.
They also make mention of a man named George Ward, who Nancy was intimate with. That was the word they used, and that he'd left 2 months before the murder, and Nancy wanted him to come back. So that makes me wonder, were Nancy and Mr. Kinnear, or maybe they were together, but was this Mr. Kinnear's child? I don't know.
Right. Huh.
I don't know. Kinnear had also mentioned to him that he was in poor health and he didn't think he'd live a very long life, and for that reason, he did not want to marry.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you think that's the real reason?
I don't know.
What
Maybe.
if he was gay?
Maybe. And there could be 100 reasons. I don't know. So everybody made assumptions about this relationship, and it was really salacious, you know.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
Gossip.
But I don't know. I don't care either way. But
yeah,
it's interesting to think about. So the coroner reported that the bullet had gone through Kinnear's chest and the left shoulder blade passing through the heart, causing instant death.
That's good.
Nancy's body was considerably more decomposed than Kinnear, and they did not discuss the results of her autopsy because the trial is only for the murder of Kinnear.
So stupid.
Yeah, I know. So next up on the list is the butcher, Jonathan Jefferson.
Jonathan Jefferson. He
I know,
should have
good,
been a
right?
jailer.
Okay. The man who comes once a week, like clockwork, to drop the meat off at the house. So, like usual, he stopped by on Saturday. You remember Mr. Kinnear was asking, where's my bacon? He wanted bacon and eggs. But Grace answered the door instead of Nancy. And she told him they did not need the delivery. Of course, at this time, Nancy is already dead, and they are planning to run away, which is why they don't want the delivery. The butcher thinks this is odd, and he asks to talk to Kinnear or to Nancy. Grace says Kinnear's out of town, and I don't know where Nancy is. Bye. And pushes him off. That was
Play it
really
real
weird.
Cool.
Yeah, think about how odd that is, because meat is expensive and it's a necessity at that point. They don't have Gardein at this time. Like, you need your meat. So next up, you've got our flute playing friend, James Walsh. He says that he came to the house Friday night, right? Played his music. McDermott wouldn't dance, all that stuff. Can you imagine, like, that's your entertainment? It's dark out. You have some candles lit and you got to listen to some guy play the flute.
Yeah, it's rough.
I mean, I'm sure he was very talented.
I mean, it might be nice.
Yeah, I'm sure it might be nice, but I don't want to do it every night.
No, that's why you need books.
I mean, I hope you can read. Oh,
yeah.
God. That's why you need television. That's what I'm thinking. Anyway, the next day, James stops by again, which we know right after McDermott shot Kinnear.
Yeah.
Of course, he doesn't know this, but he has heard the gunshot, and he sees McDermott hurry across the yard with a gun. So James...
Not suspicious.
Yeah, James is, these are his friends. These have been his friends for the last month.
Yeah.
And he just kind of innocently inquires, like, hey, what's going on? Like, I heard some noises. And McDermott said that he had to shoot at some birds and that the noise was the colt in the barn because he was chained up. And so instantly James thinks this is weird because McDermott has never fired a gun before. He doesn't even understand how he would get the gunpowder.
Right.
And McDermott said he borrowed it from a neighbor. And then also the colt is not the one that's ever chained up. It's only Mr. Kinnear's horse that is chained up. So
also, it wouldn't be the sound of a gunshot.
No, he said he heard both shots separately, or both noises separately. So he heard the gunshot and he heard the chain of the horse. And Mr. Kinnear's horse is the one that makes that noise. But when he asked, where's Mr. Kinnear? He was like, oh, he's not back yet.
Right.
And he was confused because he said, well, I just heard his horse in the stable. And he said, no, that was the colt. But then he also sees Grace and he asks Grace, where's Nancy? And she says, well, Nancy went to visit friends. And he said, well, how'd she get there? She took the horse. And so James is just
here
like,
we go.
Well, I'm out of here. You guys, something's going on and I'm not vibing with it. So he goes home. Thankfully, he's spared. But he's talking about this and clearly they're lying. And he's now basically just witnessed the aftermath of Mr. Kinnear's murder.
Oh, boy.
So next up on the list is a woman named Hannah Upton, who is the neighbor that McDermott asked for gunpowder. And she testifies that he came over July 29th around 10 a.m., kind of took the gunpowder in a hurry, said he needed to shoot some birds, and got out of there.
Really got to get those birds.
Yeah, they're really bothering us. This is a pretty clear-cut case. McDermott confessed, and you have all of this circumstantial evidence.
Yeah.
It takes 10 minutes.
Yeah.
He's found guilty, sentenced to death. He shows absolutely no reaction to the news, the same way he did to the possibility of the floor collapsing underneath him.
Okay.
Now, Grace's trial is the next day. Some sources say she was still wearing Nancy's clothes.
Oh, boy.
I don't know if that's true, but here you go. Now, Grace's trial is really a rinse and repeat session. It's got all the same folks.
Okay.
But the defense is setting up a scenario where Grace feared for her life and was forced to participate or McDermott would kill her. She claimed that she had even tried to escape and tried to run, and McDermott had shot at her, which the evidence potentially suggests because there's that stray bullet in the door jamb. James Walsh talks about that Grace was always very agreeable and they got along, but that she had been caught in some lies too, and she appeared to be wearing Nancy's clothes when he saw her, or a new dress, he said. Because at that time, you really only have two outfits. You have your work outfit and you have your Sunday outfit.
That's the life. That's what I want. I don't want choices. I just want 2 sets of clothes. That's it.
I mean, you can have that. It's going to be stinky.
No, it'd be weird now.
I mean, yeah, but that's a little light, just 2.
4.
Well, there's 7 days in a week. I'd like to wear fresh clothes every day.
No, but I wash them because I have a washing machine, unlike her.
I guess. Anyway.
Take that, Grace.
Yeah. So again, like the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, they're all here. The jury deliberates for a short time before coming back with another guilty verdict. Although unlike McDermott's steely demeanor, the Montreal Gazette reports the following reaction from Grace. During the trial, this unfortunate and criminal girl was in tears, and when the verdict was brought in, she swooned. In falling forward, one of the spikes surrounding the dock inflicted a wound in her breast, and although not of a serious nature, caused much pain.
Okay.
So apparently she fell on a spike. I don't know why there's spikes in the courtroom, but here we go. She fell on a spike right into her breast and had a boo-boo.
She's about to get a bigger boo-boo.
Well, the jury recommends mercy for Grace, which they did not for McDermott. Yeah. Grace's sentence was changed to life in prison. They say due to her age, but also strongly believe due to the fact that she is a pretty dumb-looking girl.
Yeah.
Their words, not mine. I mean, they didn't say that exactly, but they did say she was uneducated. She looked uneducated. You look like you haven't read a book, man. Sadly, I mean, I think it's sad. McDermott was hanged November 21st, 1843. I mean, he did it, but it's just gross and gruesome. And he was put to death and Grace was not.
Doesn't feel fair.
From 1843 to 1872, Grace was at Kingston Penitentiary. I have the trouble with that word. Kingston Penitentiary. Nope, can't do it. You say it.
Penitentiary.
Thank you. Yep, that's where she was.
You got it. You got it last time.
She was in jail. Minus a few years in the 50s when she was placed in an insane asylum. So Grace had started having extreme moods and hallucinating.
Oh, whoops.
She would wander around all night kind of dealing with these people that nobody but her could see.
Oh, man. Was it Nancy?
She was diagnosed as a criminal lunatic, which I don't think is an official diagnosis in modern day. She was one of Canada's first women with this diagnosis.
Huh.
But after treatment, she was returned back to prison. Now, nobody's saying prison is fun, but at this time, prison includes hard labor, physical punishment, solitary confinement, and in those days, anybody could come in and ask to see a prisoner, and they would often do that like it was a zoo. So, like random people could come in and say, "Yeah, I'm here to see Grace Marks," and they would just parade her out so she could be seen by strangers.
That's weird.
Isn't that weird?
How bizarre.
After 29 years, Grace Marks was pardoned with support from the public.
I never get that, man.
When asked the reason for her crime, she wrote, this is a quote, "Having been employed in the same house with a villain."
No.
Yikes. After her release, Grace Marks changed her name to Mary Whitney, and no record of her exists after that.
How do you think she came up with that name?
I don't know. So sadly, because Nancy Montgomery was found to be pregnant during the autopsy, her and Mr. Kinnear were buried together in an unmarked grave.
Ew.
F
I'm
off.
so done with people.
I know. That's why I brought up the thing about you don't even know you don't even know what's going on there.
I hate it. I hate it. Stop.
They have stopped. This was in the past. They buried Montgomery at Kinnear's feet in an unmarked grave. You don't even know if it was his kid. You don't even know the circumstances around which she became pregnant. Also, get over it.
Exactly.
Golly.
That's just the piece I hate.
And just a little note for you, Margaret Atwood wrote a book based on this, a historical fiction book called Alias Grace, and that was recently also turned into a miniseries.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And she wanted to give the perspective of Grace Marks and what might have been going on. And one of the things she said was, the fact that she was wearing Nancy's clothes was really honed in on a lot and thought to be really calculating and callous. But
Yeah.
she said it could have honestly been, at that time, in that period, it could have been absolute necessity. She might not have had any other clothes to wear.
Right.
She said, so anyway, I didn't read that book or watch the miniseries because I didn't want to get
Blend
too
the
into
fiction.
because it's, historical
Right.
fiction. So some of it's made up, but yeah, so it seems like they were both in on it and they were okay with it to me.
Yeah. They both seem a little off, but I mean, McDermott's confession is better, I think. I mean, is it?
But I feel like he's the one who actually did the deeds.
Yeah.
It seems like he was probably the one with the gun. I mean, that's what
Yeah.
James saw. But it seems like Grace was all in because her excuses for stopping it were never good. They were always
No.
self-serving. She didn't want to
Yeah.
make more work for herself. She also had several opportunities to flee.
Yes.
Several. Like when the butcher came,
Right.
man's a butcher. He's probably got a couple knives on him,
Yeah.
Maybe like pull him aside and say, hey, can you get me out of here? He just killed Nancy. She could have run to apparently these neighbors. I mean, flute playing James is just walking around all the time. She could have got to a neighbor's house.
Yeah.
She could have told Nancy and they could have escaped.
She's just off. There's something off about her. Like just the way she describes stuff and her reasoning is just doesn't feel like a normal empathetic human.
Yeah, there seems to be something missing in this confession where James seemed like he tried more to hide it.
Yes.
I mean, but he blamed it on Grace too, but basically it was like, yeah, I didn't do good.
Right.
But I wouldn't have done it if she hadn't started it. And I don't know. I feel like they probably both were all in. They probably, neither one of them liked being there.
Goodness.
I don't know if they were together, though, in a relationship. It's hard to say. I know he said he'd marry her, but again, it's the 1800s. I mean,
Right.
you can just say, you can just declare it. It's like Michael Scott declaring bankruptcy in those days, Like, we will be wed. We've held hands. Let's go.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yep.
Maybe he thought if they had this secret that they shared, then they'd be a good match. I don't know.
Ugh, so bad. Such poor decision making.
Yeah, and unnecessary. You can rob somebody without killing them.
Correct. Especially when they're not there.
Yeah. Yeah. I know they were waiting for Kinnear to come home, but I mean, the man sleeps.
Yeah.
So you could have just made a getaway.
Ugh,
Or you could just get another job, and not rob somebody
Yeah.
of their year's salary. But,
Yeah.
what do I know?
How about that?
I have no idea because there are so few details about Nancy Montgomery because they didn't actually try her murder.
So bad.
I don't know if she knew she was pregnant. I don't know how far along she was. I have to assume probably not very far along because then
Nobody
everybody
knew.
would have known, right?
Yeah.
I have to assume she was probably, at least 4 months or under because you kind of start showing. But you'd have more dresses. I don't know.
Right.
More aprons
Something.
to hide you. She might have known. Did Kinnear know? Was it even Kinnear's child? These are all questions I don't know. And think of how scared Nancy Montgomery must have been before she realized she was going to be murdered.
It's just so frustrating. They could have learned so much by doing that trial. That's just so insulting too. Like,
I know.
I understand that the reasons for redundancy, but it's also not giving justice to her.
I know. It doesn't matter because McDermott is going to be put to death anyway. I mean, so what's it matter? But it matters because then this is recorded in history and justice is proven as being served.
Today you'll hear like this person's has a 280-year life sentence, and it's because like it's multiple counts.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I mean, I know Grace was 16 and that I think she probably looked like an innocent little babe,
Yeah,
but I mean,
she was
McDermott's
not.
only 20.
Yeah.
It's not like he was
Ugh.
a wealthy 50-year-old man.
Oh, man. Just such bad decisions.
Either one of them could have been the influence in that
So
relationship,
bad.
I feel.
Yeah.
It's gross. I wonder if Grace came up with the idea first with the porridge scheme,
Mm-hmm.
kind of testing the waters.
Yeah.
And then McDermott just really liked the idea. He seemed like a hot-tempered guy who
Yeah.
maybe was prone to violence, and then they just spun out of control from there.
So bad.
What I think is missing, I would have expected Grace, if she were going to confess and say the things like, I told him not to kill Nancy because he might hit me. I would expect that to be followed up with, it was just a ploy so that he wouldn't realize that
Right.
I was trying to save Nancy. But she didn't fill in that subtext at all.
Mm-mm.
You know, she did say she didn't actually kill anyone. He wouldn't say, which makes me think he probably did the killing, especially because strangling someone takes quite a bit of force.
Ugh.
And
Awful.
she's, a delicate flower, according to the court. Girl can't even stand up straight without impaling herself on a spike. So, I don't know, but she could have shot a gun. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, man. Awful.
Here we go. I mean, what do you think? You got any hot takes?
Dumbbell Murders Part 2. I just think Grace seems off to me.
Yeah.
There's something missing. He seems more just like lack of morals and just making poor decisions.
Yeah.
But I don't know if one's better than the other. But I think they both were certainly involved.
Yeah. I think they probably both should have had the same sentence.
Probably.
Grace got out for some time.
Yeah. Mary
She
Whitney.
did do 29 years. It sounded pretty
at
awful.
16.
Yeah. Didn't sound like a good time.
No. Definitely not.
There you go. What are your last words?
I have 2 thoughts. And one is if you don't like a job, quit instead of murder. It's an easy tip.
Wise advice.
Pro tip.
Yeah. It's a life hack right there.
Yeah, I'm here for you. Subscribe and I'll give you something weekly. 2, it's not quite related, but it's distantly related. By the time this podcast comes out, Only Murders will be back for season 3, and I get to do my rendition of the theme song for it. Ready?
Oh, it's happening now?
I have to lean back because it's loud. Ready?
Yep. Couldn't be more ready.
Only murders in the building. Only murders in the building. I just repeat it on loop.
Is that any part of the real theme song?
No.
So this is another Philadelphia.
But I came up with this one, not Mary Kate.
Yeah, take that, Mary Kate.
Yeah, Mary Kate, come up with a better one than that.
Yeah. Let's see if you can top that. It's lyrically sound, and the melody is beautiful, and James, what's his name, wishes he could play that on his metal flute.
Yeah. Take
All
that,
right.
James.
Anything else?
Stick that up your flute. That's it.
So that was incredibly unrelated.
Murder is in the title.
And they were in a building. So.
Yeah. Gotcha.
All right. Well, who should listen today?
Maids.
Watch your back.
Yeah, right. Yeah, maids, housekeepers, butchers, cobblers, or shoemakers, if they're not the same thing.
A lot of those around.
Stable hands. I feel like I would like to be a stable hand.
I think back in the day, yeah.
Yeah.
You couldn't have been, though. You couldn't have broken through that glass ceiling.
I just put some breeches on and cut my hair.
Oh, boy.
Let's think. I guess that acronym, people who belong to that acronym, the
I'm sorry. Are we talking about the first 1st Provincial Regiment of the Province of Lower Canada.
Yeah, listen to
Pretty
this.
sure that doesn't exist anymore because it was just called Upper and Lower Canada. So
Oh.
they've done some redecorating up there. Yeah. Love you, Canada.
Love you.
That's where my grandma grew up.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, on a farm, milking cows, walking to school, 1-room schoolhouse.
Wow.
Went all the way up to 8th grade.
That's wild.
Living the life. Yeah.
Have you ever milked a cow? Or a goat?
I don't think so. I feel like I've pulled on some sort of teat, but I don't.
Well, we're going to highlight that. I'm snipping that right after this episode. Here comes Megan pulling on some kind of teat.
I'm going to edit that out. No. I don't remember what animal it belonged to.
Golden.
I didn't like it.
Okay.
So my grandmother didn't like it either.
Watch out, teats out there.
It's a terrible word. Should put it on the list.
That's good. Yeah. All right. People.
We're still going.
Who milk cows.
Yeah. Farmers, particularly dairy farmers.
Upper class farmers, actually.
Yeah.
Whatever that
Only
means.
the high society farmers.
Whatever that means.
None of those peasant farmers.
Can they wear overalls?
I'm wearing overalls today, actually.
I thought you were. You're ready to go foraging. You just need a pouch or a basket and some gloves.
And common sense. All right. Well, you can find us on all the platforms at
Tea Time Crimes.
You can email us at
teatimecrimes@gmail.com. We love to hear from you and your thoughts and what your favorite color is and your favorite kind of murder.
No. Please just send me cases.
Yeah.
Go send me your favorite way to murder.
Yeah. Let's just do cases.
I look forward to seeing an inbox full of the color blue.
Yeah.
I think that's the most popular favorite color. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for listening. And maybe we'll be back next week.
Ta-ta. Teats out.
Bye.